The generation before me and the generation after were kind of reworking our description of what masculinity is. Like I saw between my grandfather and my dad. You know, my dad says "I love you," which to him is a big deal, just expressing his feelings. Whereas my grandfather was a lot more stern. And actually, this poem was kind of inspired by a conversation we had about my grandfather a long time ago in the family. Like he had this very rigid description of masculinity, and I saw my father doing a bit of work to kind of release that.
I hadn't actually read poetry for a while now, and I picked up your book and I was like, oh, I'm not really into poetry, but oh my God, like I realized that no, I've always had a fascination with how these words are woven so beautifully and so frugally almost, like you're honoring words, every single word matters. And that was really beautiful. Thank you for bringing me back to poetry.
I'm super encouraged to see that younger people have a much better idea and a much better grip on what society should be ideally, what men should be comfortable expressing and what women should be comfortable expressing. And it seems like the world is heading in that direction and getting shaped in that direction. So I have a lot of optimism for the future, and it's encouraging for me to see that a lot of that stuff that's happening in this world, which is really toxic and very negative, is happening amongst the generation that's fading out. Zems, I'm really excited to talk to our next guest today. Would you mind introducing him?
Oh, yes, it would be my pleasure. Today, I want to introduce you to someone who uplifts me and everyone else who comes into his orbit by just being him, which is intelligent, kind, energetic, driven, fashionable, and incredibly inspiring. This young man is truly a joy to be around, and there is always something insightful that comes out of every conversation I have with him. So yes, I'm really excited to welcome him to this conversation today. Haroon Tahir is originally from Pakistan, but was born and brought up in the UAE. He's a marketing and communications director by day, and a poet, author, and content creator by night. His first poetry collection debuted in 2019 amongst the top 10 of Amazon's bestseller list, and at number 1 on the Middle Eastern poetry list.
Amazing.
Over time, Haroon has also built an impressive and substantial following across his social media channels, and his content offers a nuanced view of a millennial man, romanticizing his daily life where he straddles the corporate world and the creative expression, and insightful anecdotes, snippets from his poetry, and showcasing his love for travel and visiting the newest coffee shops and the exciting events all around town and around the world. So welcome, Haroon Tahir.
Thank you so much. I'm blushing. That was such a nice intro. Thank you.
You deserve it.
Welcome, Haroon. It's great to have you on the Epiphany Dialogues. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I mean, I've always had the most profound conversations with Zimmy, so I'm so excited to talk a bit more on a public platform.
I have to say here that Haroon is one of the many people who have constantly over the past few years been telling me, you need a podcast, you need to be on TikTok, you need to be sharing this stuff with a wider audience. What is wrong? Why aren't you doing it? You want help? And so thank you for not giving up. Thank you for encouraging me. Here we are, and you're amongst our first guests, and we are so happy to have you.
It's my pleasure, honestly. I'm so excited to talk today.
Haroon, so we have you to blame for this. This is all your fault. Thank you so much for encouraging Zimmy and via Zimmy to encourage me to do this. So I really appreciate that. Haroon, tell us a little bit more about your book.
My book, I put it out in 2019. It's called Love, Lost, Learned, and it was kind of, poetry for me started as like the purest form of expression. So I started writing when I was very young, and then I started posting snippets on Instagram. And from there, I saw that I don't want my poetry to be confined to a square on Instagram, and so I got this idea to do a book. I had a very supportive group of friends at the time, and my professor at the time really encouraged me to go for it as well. At the time I put out the book, the best-selling kind of poet at the time was a guy named Atticus who hid behind a mask. So for me, it was really important to give that, open creative expression of what it means to be a man, a millennial man from my perspective. I also really wanted to share, we kind of come from a generation that's reading less and less, so it was really important for me to put my work out to encourage people to read and also encourage men and women of people who look like me to express themselves. Because, whenever I looked at an Amazon bestsellers list, I never saw anyone that had a name like mine, on there. So it was just so, and that's something I've addressed in the book as well. It was so important for me to just, express myself. And that's all where it started. And it's really my love of photography and poetry that's kind of come together, that's really culminated through the book. And yeah, I was very grateful to get a great response. We published it right before the pandemic, which was great time. I mean, obviously the pandemic was a horrible time, but it was great timing in retrospect because, a lot of my readers at the time said that the book really allowed for them to reflect. It's kind of a reflection of your early 20s. They really allowed them to reflect on their lives and also, you know, hear another, I think the whole point of poetry and why I started writing poetry is not feeling alone and to feel part of a community. And I feel very proud to say that, a lot of people came and said the book helped them feel seen. It helped kind of validate their feelings. So yeah.
Amazing. And it's in three sections, right? I have the book over here with me for people to be able to see.
Right.
It's loved, lost, and learned. How long did it take you to go through all of the book, and were there some sections that were more easy to do than others, or how did that all go?
I mean, I started working on the book after my first creative writing class in university, which was kind of in 2012, I would say. So it was almost 6 years of, me writing poetry and then, seeing that there's kind of a bigger narrative to it. So that's what kind of each chapter represents a different narrative. I would definitely say the hardest chapter to write was the learn chapter, where I kind of delve into masculinity and how, there's a poem in there about boys not crying or men not expressing themselves. I think that was the most, I mean, putting out the book as a whole was difficult, because it was my name on the page and, friends, colleagues would have access to like my deepest of thoughts and emotions. But definitely, I'd say the third chapter was the toughest because, it was very personal. It talked about my experiences of being a man, of, toxic masculinity, social anxiety, some things that I'd never spoken about before. So definitely that was the hardest chapter to speak about.
There were so many sections that I loved, and so many passages that I loved. I think Zimmy's got a few that she's probably going to share with us as well.
Yeah, firstly, I just wanted to say that in terms of the toxic masculinity versus healthy masculinity that you are, helping to bring the attention to amongst your generation, but also through you to even like our generation, the one that came before you, I really appreciate that. And that is possibly what we discussed earlier before you came on the episode, was one of the epiphanies that you came to while writing this book. And is that why you say that was like the hardest section to write about? Was it difficult to verbalize what you had picked up?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it was very difficult to verbalize and just kind of share with the world and put it on paper, how men are perceived, especially like coming from a culture where men are, told not to cry or to express their feelings. So definitely that was the hardest part of it. But yeah, I'm very happy that I got a chance to put it out, and I had like the creative circle around me, the support that I needed from my family. I mean, I worked on this book while working like an agency job full time, so I'm very grateful that I had the right circle of people to support me at the time as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can imagine that it would have been a step to take out and be seen saying that and writing that. That's really kudos to you. It's interesting that you bring that up because that is your poem that I had bookmarked in my copy, which I had said, I just want to read a little bit from that on the episode because it's my favorite one, really, and it's from the learned section. It says, "For you, my son, are a man, and this is how men should behave. Cover up your wounds with the pale bandaged strips of your unbreakable ego. Enunciate every sentence with a pause. Speak firmly and tread with a steady groove. Make them stand up and listen to your commanding tone. For you, my son, are a man, and this is how men should behave. Never let a drop of tear appear from the corner of your eyes, for only women bear water and carry life. Never show remorse, for you are not a weakling, and the world must know of your unwavering might. For you, my son, are a man, and this is how men should behave." Like, that is beautiful. In such few words, you express the whole experience of what it feels like to be a man, but also trying to be a human being. What do you think, Nick?
That hits hard because, Haroon's absolutely right. I feel like so much of the toxic masculinity that, prevails in the world today is because men have to suppress some of the very natural emotions that come up during life. There's an expectation from men right from a very early age that they must behave in a specific way. There is an expectation on women, on girls from a young age to behave in a specific way. And it's when these ideas are imposed upon human beings to conform to something that somebody else has decided, that's where all the problems seem to arise. I don't know if it has always been there. It probably has. But I think through social media, we see it a lot more now.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. I feel like, the generation before me and the generation after were kind of reworking our description of what masculinity is. Like, I saw it between my grandfather and my dad. My dad says I love you, which to him is a big deal, just expressing his feelings. Whereas, my grandfather was a lot more stern. And actually, this poem was kind of inspired by a conversation we had about my grandfather a long time ago in the family. Like, he had this very rigid description of masculinity, and I saw my father doing a bit of work to kind of release that. And now it's up to my generation and the next generation to really also understand that masculinity is not like a monolith. You can be gentle and strong, you can be sensitive and powerful at the same time. So I think we have a lot of responsibility, especially with all the chatter now that goes on social media, to address that. And I tried to do that kind of there is a sense of the tone of the poem is a bit sardonic and like there's a bit of irony in it. So I was trying to address that whole idea that women have a very specific role and men have a very specific role in society. And I think our job is to kind of challenge that notion a little bit now.
What has been the most interesting response from anybody that's read the book, whether it's somebody that you already know or a stranger?
I would definitely say hearing from my friends that they didn't know this side of me existed, and I thought so deeply and so profoundly, and the things that they knew about my personal life affected me in different ways. I would definitely say one thing was another a great follower of mine, like we talk quite often, texted me, and he really related to the poems about masculinity, and he felt like it was really nice for him to hear that perspective from a guy who's from the same culture, who looks like him. So I would say those were kind of the most two profound things that happened, like something within my personal circle. And then, I started writing poetry to feel like less alone, to have like this platform to share my thoughts. And what I realized, it was making other people feel the same way as well. Like, they were feeling seen or heard, or their, feelings were being verbalized. So yeah, those I'd say would be the two things.
I think one of the things that has probably helped a lot of people when they've read your book is we go through this life trying to fit in with people that we feel are emulating the kinds of things that we look up to. And we feel like this is what success is, or this is what you should do. And people within that crowd who see something different and realize that, yes, it's safe for me to also express the same ideas and the same values. I don't have to fit in with everybody else because here's a person that's courageous who's speaking up and saying things that resonate with me, which enables more people to stand out and break those lines of conformity. So if only for that reason, thank you so much for writing this book and helping people to be more comfortable in their own skin.
You're writing another book, right? That's in the works?
Yes, so I've been working on my second book for a hot minute now, just trying to find the right kind of timing and the right platform to put it out. It's called Core Memories, and it's kind of very much that. I don't like titles that have too much symbolism or allegory. I just want to kind of get straight to the point, which is my personality very much. And yeah, it's kind of a reflection of my 20s as a whole. I would say it's kind of an evolution, people will be able to see my evolution as a poet, as a writer through that book as well. It's got a lot more prose. It talks a little bit about, the idea of embracing yourself, getting older. And I know you guys got a few snippets of the book as well. I shared them across. And just trying to deal, how, again, touching on the topics that I did in my first book, but in a more mature way, through a different kind of lens, I would say.
And when does it come out?
Q4 is the plan. So, I'm giving market speak right now, but Q4 of this year, hopefully, before the end of the year is the plan. It's pretty much done. It's 125. We're at 125 poems. I just need to kind of work on the design and the outlay, and also, there was so much I learned from self-publishing the first time around that, I really want to take those learnings and, implement that in the second book.
If there was a choice, Haroon, that you follow either your marketing corporate career, or if you were given all the prosperity that you would need to just be a writer, a poet, a traveler, would you choose that, or do you really enjoy both aspects or multiple aspects?
That's a great question. I would say I definitely enjoy the structure that corporate life brings.
Right.
It's given me a sense of discipline that I think I wouldn't have had if I was a writer. To put out Love, Lost, and Learned, I did take like 2 months off of work, and I feel like if I would have taken more time off, then I would be, because I'm a night owl, so I would be waking up at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So I feel like corporate life gives you structure, but I could straddle both worlds. So that would be the most ideal scenario, like having a corporate life where I have the flexibility to do what I want when I want, but also writing. So I'd love a mix of that, to be honest, because I do like the structure that, working brings. And, with poetry and writing, you also get kind of siloed into just, not interacting with anyone. I do love the social aspect of my job as well. So
Right.
well, sometimes it is challenging, but yeah,
But it
not bad.
also helps you travel, doesn't it? Your work.
A little bit, yes. A lot of it is funded by me, but yes, I'm very grateful that my work gives me the experience of meeting some really cool people. I met some really really interesting personalities, represented them over the years, and gotten to see some places that I would not have otherwise. And yeah, just opened my eyes into to I think, especially now that I've evolved into like a role as a manager or director, just dealing with people has taught me so much about myself that, I didn't know, or I could have not known had I just been writing.
Sure. No, that's a very fair point. So I want to also ask you, how has been newly married been for you? What has that brought out, if you're open to share?
Of course. Thank you for bringing that up. I would say it's definitely made me more softer. It's brought out a bit of a more playful side in me. I'm someone who enjoyed spending a lot of time by myself. So it's also, made me used to having someone's company. My wife can speak kind of better to her experience, but it's so nice to have someone in your corner at all times and, to build a life with someone, to share all your experiences with someone is a beautiful thing. And I really saw that recently when I traveled to the place solo for work and then I flew my wife out after, and I really felt like the difference, as someone who traveled solo a lot. I mean, this, Zimmy.
Yeah.
I've traveled solo quite a bit, but to travel with my wife was a really beautiful experience, and I learned a lot about my own self through it as well.
That's so beautiful. I relate to that because before I got married to Arafat, I used to travel solo a lot too, and I thought that was my preferred state because, no one else to, argue over itineraries, and, I'm very spontaneous when I travel, and just all of that. But ever since Arafat and I have been together, I have never felt the need for it. It's very interesting because we just enjoy each other's company, and we don't get into all of that pressure, and we just like to be present wherever we're traveling. So I totally get that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always aspired to you guys. I've seen you married, mashallah, for a while now. So you guys were friends and always such a great example of what a married couple should be because, I see you guys giving each other the space and the time and, being so present with each other. And yeah, I mean, that's something I really aspire to doing more of as well in married life.
Thank you. That's so kind. And if the intention is there and you are being as whole as you are as a man, I think it bodes well.
100%, 100%. Congratulations on getting married. I think it was recent from what Zimmy's saying.
Thank you. Yes, it was January of this year. It feels like it's weird.
Okay.
It feels like a long time ago, but
Yes.
also not a long time ago. It's like this weird feeling.
Well, that's a great sign. It means that it feels so natural that it's been around forever, right? That's a
Yeah,
blessing for sure.
Now, I have
yeah.
to tell you that Nick has been married to the love of his life. And, touch wood, one of the couples that me and Arafat aspire to. So I just want to kind of pass that forward and say that you have more couples now. How many years has it been, Nick?
We got married in 2003. We've been together since 2000.
22 years. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Mashallah.
yeah.
Bless.
22 years
Wow.
this year. We've been together for a while.
You want to give us
It's a
some
huge
marriage
blessing.
advice?
I was literally gonna say.
Marriage advice.
Happy marriage.
Happy marriage advice.
Hi, everyone. We just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for being here with us at the Epiphany Dialogues, where curiosity meets consciousness. If you're enjoying this episode, please hit the like button, follow, subscribe, and share with like-minded people.
And you're also welcome to join our conversation. If you have an epiphany to share, please leave us a comment or email us. Details are in the description below. And with that, back to the episode. I think that if you are blessed enough to marry somebody that you absolutely adore and want them to be the happiest person in the world, and you spend your life doing everything that you can to try to ensure that happiness, then by default, you are also going to be happy, and that's worked really well for me.
And it has to be both ways, though.
It doesn't have to be both ways. No.
Really? My
You're
goodness.
blessed if
Okay,
it happens
let's
both
do
ways.
this. I want to hear
Yeah.
it.
This should be a whole other episode, guys.
Right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
This needs to
No,
be a
this is
whole
how we
other
roll.
episode.
This was one of the epiphanies, actually, Zims, that was on my list to talk about at some point. But no, it doesn't have to be both ways. You're really blessed if it is both ways, as I am. But I think if you're lucky enough to find someone who truly deserves love and kindness and happiness, and you are the person that wants to do that for them, then it doesn't have to be reciprocated. And that works on all kinds of different relationships, right? Whether it's a parent-child relationship or if it's a romantic relationship or whatever it is. If you derive joy from bringing happiness to one person or many people, in what you do, whether it's a personal relationship or professional relationship or whatever it is, that's good enough. That relationship works. So that's
Wow.
my epiphany.
Thanks for sharing. I
And
mean, that is controversial. I'm not sure if I agree with it. I have to unpack this, but
Yeah.
we'll do that in another episode. But
sure.
I want to know what Haroon thinks about this.
I'm very fascinated by that opinion because actually it's so interesting. I'm sorry, I'm gonna plug in my second book, but there's a poem I wrote in the second book about, what is love, but if not expecting something from another person, I mean, I'm just paraphrasing the bit, but I always thought of love as expectation, but now that you put it beautifully, and I've heard this anecdote before as well, that true love is actually giving someone your everything without expecting anything in return. Apparently, that's and you've kind of put it so beautifully over there. But yeah, it's definitely a hot topic of debate, and maybe the best way to work a relationship is when and I've also felt that way. Like when I expect less, I feel like the relationship flows better, no matter what it is, even whether it's romantic, it's friendships. The less you expect from people, the kind of more wholesome and healthier they become. So, yeah.
Doesn't that make you like totally self-reliant that you have to care about yourself as well and the other person? Like that's what's kind of not landing for me if we're just kind of giving to another person. I mean, I'm sure if we're giving that much that they would reciprocate, but
Yeah.
No, not
it's
always.
yeah,
Not
so
always.
that's
There will be people that take advantage of that situation, right? And that's not a healthy
Mm.
place to be. But you have to find somebody who is deserving of kindness and love and all of that sort of stuff. And if they are deserving, it generally automatically means that that love will be reciprocated. But if you're approaching relationships from the point of view of I'm going to get something back from this, then you're kind of doomed to failure because whatever your expectations are never completely going to match what you're going to receive because everybody's different.
That's so interesting, and I know you're a dad, Nick. Maybe that's something that parents, I've heard a lot of parents speak about as well, right? That parenthood is that relationship where you kind of give your child everything without expecting anything in return, and that truly is the purest form of love. So yeah, it's very fascinating to hear
That's
that.
exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, your kids will, as a natural part of their growth process, try to push themselves away from you and distance themselves from you to create their own personality and to create their own space and to develop their own lives. That doesn't mean that you're going to stop loving them, right? In fact, if there are parents that are approaching those relationships in that way, it does become very, very difficult. It becomes almost toxic in some ways because you're expecting your child to behave towards you in the way that you want, right? But if you're just there for your child and you love them and support them and give them what you want to give to see them be happy, that is going to come round back to you when it eventually clicks in their heads that, oh wow, my parents really were there for me as I was growing up and finding my own way, and and then that relationship will be stronger than anything else. And I feel like every relationship works that way as long as you don't let people take advantage of you.
well, thank you for that wisdom. I'm going to sleep over it.
So
Well, it's
many
definitely
epiphanies and
debatable. Sorry, Narun.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying, so many epiphanies in such a short period of time, guys.
Like Zimmy said, man, that's how we roll.
Yeah.
Yep. Haroon, what was an epiphany or a realization that changed the course of your life?
I would say it was the idea that the best time to start is now. I feel like we put off doing things in our life for so long. And for me, whether it was taking my Instagram public or sharing my first poem or putting out my first book, it was really the biggest thing I've learned in life is just to go for it and just to start now. Um, that would be the biggest epiphany that I think has changed the course of my life.
And it's played out in all areas since then.
It really has, yeah. Even when it comes to my professional life, I've always kind of just jumped headfirst into things, and sometimes that's the best way to go about it, rather than overthinking or holding back. Just kind of going for it is what has really helped me.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I definitely relate to that. I've always kind of lived my life that way. So, yeah, I will agree with you. But I know a lot of people who take a lot of time. And I used to envy their patience and their steadiness and like really the preparation and kind of leaning into this pursuit of perfection, which was so hard. And sometimes you would never start because of that, because perfection obviously is, a myth. And I always used to be like, no, but, perfect is the enemy of good. If I have something good and if I'm ready and if I'm excited, I just want to do it. And then I can, refine it along the way or see how it goes. But yeah, I guess it's the personality thing, right? If you're able to handle that kind of risk taking and kind of back yourself, like, okay, if it didn't work, it didn't work. It's cool. I tried it. But yeah, this is a very important message through you to people to obviously be yourself, but sometimes maybe don't wait too long to do things and don't wait for the perfect conditions and environments. Sometimes just really take that step and life kind of opens the path for you from there on, right?
Mike Tyson had a saying, which I'm sure that you've probably heard, is that everybody's got a plan when they step into the ring until they get punched in the mouth. So
Right.
you kind of have to start with a plan, and that's fine, but you have to have the ability to deal
Step
with
in.
life's events and roll with them and figure out and chart the course as you go along with every wave that affects your boat.
Absolutely.
And Haroon, I think you're a couple of years younger than I am. So I'm so super encouraged to see that younger people have a much better idea and a much better grip on what society should be ideally, what men should be comfortable expressing and what women should be comfortable expressing. And it seems like the world is heading in that direction and getting shaped in that direction. So I have a lot of optimism for the future. I have a daughter who's going to be 20 this year, and encouraging for me to see that a lot of that stuff that's happening in this world now, even, which is really toxic and very negative, is happening amongst the generation that's kind of fading out, and the new generation that's coming in really have their head on their shoulders, very very firmly placed, and it's super encouraging to see.
And how hard or easy was it for you, Haroon, amongst your friends, amongst your peers, to be able to own a little more of your softer side, perhaps, of your kinder side? Was it difficult?
It was, and especially with social media, where random strangers can come up and comment anything they want on their picture, on your pictures or your profile. It was very difficult. I think it was just me taking a bit of a leap of faith and just expressing what I wanted to express and expressing my authenticity and truth. But it was definitely very difficult to do that initially, and even in my corporate job, just saying, I think the word male poets specifically are very stigmatized. They have a certain image or perception, and kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people at the time, like my friends at the time, they were like, why don't you publish under a pseudonym? And I was very insistent that it be under my legal birth name, because I really wanted to own what I was putting out, and also kind of set an example for other men. Like I said, when I was putting out the book, there were not many contemporary male poets that I read or knew about. I mean, we had obviously the greats like Pablo Neruda and who or Seamus Heaney, who were from a different time, but there was no contemporary poet that I knew of. So it was really important for me to really own that work and not hide behind a pseudonym or a mask.
Amazing, amazing. And again, kudos to you, Haroon, because I completely understand the fear of publishing something that's a little bit out of the norm, let's say, under your own name. I've done that where I've written a book and published it under a pseudonym because I'm like, yeah, this is probably a little bit too out there, and I don't want people to think of me in a certain way or whatever. So I've done that. So again, hats off to you for having the courage to do that. And it's a great book. After you've published it, and people who know you already, not necessarily close friends or anything like that, have potentially read it or come across some of the poetry that you've written. Tell us some of the experiences that you've had that have come from that, from the responses of people.
I mean, it was really cool to kind of, when you log in on Amazon, and I know you have a book, Nick, so you're able to see where your book's been sold. And I was
Mm.
really fascinated to see like the book got sold in places that I never thought I would visit, like Sweden. One of my followers is Swedish, and bless her, she bought two copies of the book. She gave one to her friend. So it's just wonderful to see how, writing can transcend boundaries and barriers, and especially I think a time like right now, or even back in 2019, like where there was so much division, and I found that writing and poetry is something that can really unite us, no matter where we come from, and that was something that I really took from the experiences. Like we're all really the same people, the same blood, bones, and flesh on the inside, and we all want to be heard. We all have these experiences and feelings of not being able to express ourselves, or going through loss, or going through heartache, or thinking that you found true love, but it wasn't really true love. So it was just great to see the breadth of the experience, that it just wasn't people who had the same names like me, or came from my culture, or looked like me, but it was much bigger than that. So I would say that was the biggest kind of learning, and the most profound experience out of it.
Nice, nice.
And I have to say, poetry for me has always been just so interesting as a medium, because it's much less words than I am fond of reading, because I read like really thick books, but it's so impactful. Like, I found that amazing that you can, communicate such deep, profound, even angry, or even very, very sad, like, heavy subjects through poetry, which kind of softens it a little bit and draws people in. I feel like people can learn so much from poetry like yours, because it is still poetry. It's still soft. It's still, it flows in a more inviting way. And yet you communicate like, multitudes through that. And that, to me, like, I hadn't actually read poetry for a while now. And I picked up your book and I was like, oh, I'm not really into poetry. But oh my God, like, I realized that no, I've always had a fascination with how these words are woven so beautifully and so frugally almost, like you're honoring words. Every single word matters. And that was really beautiful. Thank you for bringing me back to poetry.
No, thank you for thinking about me and having me on. Honestly, it's so, I'm blushing literally from the kindness that you guys are sharing. But definitely I agree. I feel like poetry is the purest like form of expression. It's literally a thought frozen in time. And the beautiful thing is it's a few words, but it's really up to, and what was really interesting for me to see was every reader, every person, or even some friends of mine interpreted every part so differently.
Yeah.
And that's what's so beautiful about it, that in a few words, or just the use of punctuation, the meaning can completely change, or the meaning that you take from it can completely change. So yeah, I'm glad that you had that experience. And this is what this is the kind of writing I love to read as well. Like, I love to read. I have to shout out a few of my favorite poets, like some of the contemporary ones, like F.S. Yusuf or Courtney Peppernell, who actually I've discovered more recently, or even kind of some of the greats like Pablo Neruda and Sylvia Plath. Like, they all had this beautiful skill of being able to say so much in 3-4 lines.
Yeah, that's definitely I love something that I aspire to because I am very verbose. Everything is like 3 paragraphs long for me, and that's something that I kind of am working on to be concise but impactful in how I communicate, and especially how I write. I think communication is still a little bit okay, but when I write, oh my God, like I can just write paragraphs and pages just to make sure that what I'm trying to say is communicated clearly. But this gives me like this idea of no, no, no. I think you can be a little more magical with your words, you know. So yeah, no, I've loved that. What I wanted to ask you is. How did writing this book and finding more of yourself on this journey affect your closest relationships, even your relationship with yourself, let's start with, and then how did it flow out? And have you noticed your relationships transforming as you have?
I mean, I would definitely say it transformed a lot of my relationships for the positive, especially within my family. When they got to read the book, they were like, "We don't know you thought so profoundly and you had such like deep opinions about things or deep experiences in life." I mean, I was just 24 or 25 when I put out the book. So that really helped with my family. I would say, obviously there was a muse in the book, and she can be real or imaginary, and I think my relationship with my muse kind of changed as well after a lot of the my feelings were verbalized in the book. So yeah, I definitely think it was taken positively. I'm very humorous, as you know, Zimmy, and I like to
Yeah.
crack jokes. So a lot of my friends didn't see this side of me until they actually
Yeah.
got a copy of the book or they bought it. So I'm glad that it allowed my friends to see a different side of me. In terms of my relationship with myself, I think it definitely allowed me to look at myself in a different light and just realize that I can be many multitudes. I'm not just my job, my full-time job, or I'm not just my Instagram page, or I'm not just my writing career. I'm not just a monolith, and I think that's the most profound thing that I learned by writing and putting out the book, that you can be as many things as you want to be, and you don't have to box yourself into a certain idea of yourself or certain image of yourself.
Do you find that there are the different facets of Haroon that express themselves at different times to different people in different ways, or are you genuinely yourself most of the time and only expose maybe certain parts of yourself to a select few?
I mean, I would leave that question to the people that I interact with. But I would definitely say I'm a different person at work. At work I have a different role. In my relationships, I'm a different person. With my friends, I'm a lot more humorous, and I would definitely say, yeah, the crowd that I'm with brings a different layer of me. They're all parts of me, but it's different layers of me that I share. Even a lot of people that follow me on social media, when they meet me, they don't realize how shy I am in person. I'm a bit shy. Yeah, I think there's different like layers to me as a person, and depending on the circle I'm in, that I get to kind of unpeel that a little more. But yeah, I think the Japanese, correct me if I'm wrong, the Japanese say, right, that there's 8 kind of layers that you have to yourself, and each person in your life has access to a different layer, and I feel like I relate to that deeply. Not to say that I have 8 different faces, but a different side to myself.
Layers, yeah, I haven't heard that before. That's something
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look up. That sounds fascinating,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's interesting that I haven't because I obviously work with people and personalities, but I haven't come across that, but I'm very curious. I'm gonna look it up.
I'm gonna find it on Instagram and send it to you guys.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Perfect. Haroon, towards the end of our show, we always ask our guests if you had a time machine and you could go back to any point in your timeline, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself who might be at a point of needing some advice or at a crossroads or something along those lines?
Great question. I would say I mean, I would always say something that I live by, and I've seen kind of happen in real time, is like the best time to start anything is now. And also believing in divine timing. I'm someone who's always like, especially living in a place like Dubai, you're always kind of in a rush to get to the next place. I would definitely say just being more present. Like that's what I would tell my college self or my high school self, that just to be more present and really enjoy every experience that life gives me, because I'm always thinking about the next thing. Yeah, that's kind of two things I'd say I tell myself.
And do you feel you bring that now in your daily life, or as often as possible? Do you make an effort to intentionally be more present?
I definitely try. I mean, I've got these like reminders, limits on my phone where, my phone goes off if I'm using Instagram for more than an hour, which sometimes is tough because I use Instagram for work as well. I've tried to implement these, little kind of daily kind of tactics to help me be more present. With my friends, we have something that whoever picks up their phone first pays the bill. I think we've
Nice.
also tried it at some point, right, Zimmy? Like stacking our phones up. So I would just say being more present is something I try to do. Just trying to like journal more, pray more as well. That's something that I try to do to be more present in the given moment.
Haroon, thank you so much for joining us on the Epiphany Dialogues. It was really a pleasure to meet you and to have you with us. And we look forward to having the second book come out and reading that as well.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure and honor for me. I mean, when Zimmy told me she was starting her podcast, and I actually listened to the first episode today, so I'm just really honored that you guys took out the time to speak about the book and, allow me to share a bit of my artistry and creativity as well.
It's
Absolutely.
a pleasure. Absolute pleasure for us, Haroon. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Take care.